Taking the plunge. The first vacation after the divorce was the hardest. We drove 10 hours north to the Great Sand Dunes and a dude ranch in Colorado. We were me and my daughters, ages 4 and 5. This vacation had been picked by my 4-year-old because she loved horses. It was expensive, it was organized, and it had lots of horses. I was looking forward to the escape. The 6 months leading up to the vacation had been filled with court hearings, losses of friendships, legal bills, and general loneliness. I was ready to forget my divorce. Within 1 hour of our drive north, the vacation was a litany of mishaps. I had wanted to escape the divorce, but the vacation felt like a haunting from it instead. The drive was long and the scenery was tedious. My children were small. By hour 1, I was being asked relentlessly when we would get somewhere, anywhere interesting. By hour 2, my daughters missed Daddy. It was our first vacation without him. Small voices were coming from the back seat asking, "Do you hate him, Mom? Why can't he just come on vacation with us?" Thinking about such questions was not a vacation for me. It made me painfully aware that the seat next to me was vacant. During the worst parts of the previous 6 months, I had attempted to talk to my girls about how our lives were changing. They had wanted no part of these conversations. However, the boredom of being trapped in a 10-hour car ride through the desert scrub suddenly made the divorce and my ex-husband a constant conversational topic. It was hard to field their questions without using cuss words. "No, I don't hate your father. I'm angry with him right now, but I don't hate him. No, he will never go on vacation with us again. I mean, yes, he will take you on vacation, just not me." So we got to the sand dunes by the end of day 2, and I was feeling very creaky, cranky, and old. The Great Sand Dunes of Colorado were 100 degrees the day we arrived. We stopped to buy sleds for the dunes at the local market, and we were told it was too hot to sled. The plastic on the sleds was actually melting off the bottom of them, so we drove to the campgrounds to set camp. I unpacked my tent, which was 18 years old and quite dear to me. The tent, last used by my ex-sister-in-law the summer before, had apparently been returned broken. I was not informed of this fact, so it was a surprise, like when my dog craps in the living room. A sour pit of resentment grew in my stomach as I attempted to fix the tent. This tent had lasted 13 years longer than my marriage. I had gone camping all over the country with it. Way before I had become a mother, I had done whippets with a cute German dentist in this tent. I had made love to my first boyfriend in this tent in the Smoky Mountains. He kissed wet and complained of nature too much. Years later, I kissed the sand and salt off another boyfriend's skin in Ocracoke, North Carolina, in this tent. I had woken up staring at bison looking back down at me in the Badlands in the tent. I had huddled with 4 college girls on a very cold night in the Black Hills, drinking miniatures and playing poker. I had watched a moon rise over the coyotes howling in Chaco Canyon in a pot-induced haze in this tent that was now broken. It was a hard loss. I had wanted to escape loss on this vacation, but there it was literally smacking me in the face as unrestrained broken tent flaps in the middle of the night. The tent was 18 years old, but I blamed the entirety of its demise on my ex-in-laws, instead of the fact that tents break, even good ones. Well, we jerry-rigged the tent with duct tape, waited until the sun set to play in the dunes. We borrowed a sled that didn't melt. It didn't really work either. We watched the full moon rise over the orange hills of the dunes. I cuddled next to my kids and fell asleep. We awoke the next morning to my oldest daughter puking with heat exhaustion. She puked all over the tent. An older Vietnamese woman came over and talked to me. I hadn't understood Vietnamese when my Vietnamese ex-mother-in-law spoke it, and I didn't understand it at the park, but I was pretty sure the lady was telling me what a crappy mother I was and how I should give my ex-husband more custody. You can laugh. Please. I realized I was 5 hours away from the nearest hospital with a heat-exhausted, puking small child, and I was it. I couldn't fob this off on Dad. I needed to get Amanda something to calm her stomach, get her some liquid so that she wouldn't puke. We did. Eventually she stopped puking, but the car smelled of puke on the entire 7-hour drive to the Dude Ranch. So at this point in the trip, I was hoping that the Dude Ranch would be okay. It would save the trip. We would reach our destination and have a great time and return home happy and relaxed. When we finally turned into the road to the Dude Ranch, we were relieved to be done with those horrible sand dunes and on the final stretch of an actual vacation. And then we saw our room. Despite paying what everyone else paid to attend to the Dude Ranch, we were given a small attic room up 3 flights of stairs. The room smelled of pee. Apparently, single moms complain about this hotel class system quite a bit. For those of you not in the loop, as a one-parent household, you pay more for hotels and you get the crappiest rooms. As we passed all the beautiful rooms given to real families, my heart sank. There were fathers everywhere at the Dude Ranch, doing things that good dads do. They played ball with their sons. They took their daughters to the swing sets. They brought their wives coffee after dinner. I felt non-existent. My children were treated like they had leprosy. My kids are cute and friendly, and they're used to being treated well. Between the second-class treatment and the overload of other kids' dads, my kids were acting out all over the place, to the point of physical violence against other children. For the first time ever, people actively disliked my children. I was talked to by the 19-year-old camp counselor / daycare worker about how terrible my kids were every day when I picked them up from what was essentially a glorified gay care. I had missed the tiny, tiny print on the bottom that stated my 2 kids were too young to actually do any actual horseback riding. I had unconsciously planned a vacation for a married couple. I didn't actually want to drop my kids off at a daycare during a vacation. What I was supposed to do during my time was ride horses with other adults. But I discovered I'm allergic to horses. I actually break out in large hives when I'm on a horse. The horse I was paired with was named Diego, but he should have been named Diablo. He knew I was scared of him. He refused to do anything I asked him to do. When I rode, when I could actually get Diablo to actually walk, I would watch as the hives on my arm became a special shade of red that I previously had not known existed. No one sat up with us at dinner, and if they did, they looked like they wanted to be somewhere else. We were in the middle of all these people, and I was very lonely. I cried every night. My cell phone didn't work. I had few friends left I could call anyway. I was alone with 2 small, sad children in a room that smelled like pee. It was pretty sad. It was day 3 when my oldest and I went whitewater rafting on the Colorado River that had been organized by the Dude Ranch. For the first time in the vacation, I focused on the present moment. My daughter and I laughed and giggled. We got wet. We stopped for lunch, and everyone was allowed to jump off from a certain height into the river. The kids were allowed to do the Punk's Plunge, which was a 7-foot cliff. Amanda did this without even looking. Then she challenged me to walk off the 42-foot cliff that adults were allowed to jump from. I was terrified. The guy in front of me stopped to think about the 42-foot drop, and I asked him to move out of my way because if I thought about it, I wouldn't do this. You weren't allowed to wear glasses. I'm practically blind without mine. Not seeing what 42 feet looks like and continuing to walk no matter what helped a lot. The water is very cold in the Colorado River, cold enough to wake you up from your whining, resenting, seething, and complaining. It was at this point, I'd call it God smacking me upside the head with the actual Colorado River, that I realized I needed to do a vacation like a single mom. I needed to do it differently than if my ex were there. And I needed to let the resentments wash far away. Be like the sand dunes, chiseled from rock into something soft and flexible. Be like water that holds you close, but is strong enough to cut through granite during a storm. I realized I could not do what I had done before and be happy. My ex-husband was not there. He would not entertain us with jokes or take a million pictures. We needed to let go of the ghosts. The day after the whitewater rafting trip, I stopped dropping the kids off at the daycare. And I said goodbye to Diablo, the hive giver. Rocky Mountain National Park is 18 miles from the ranch. I bought a multi-day pass. We headed there for the final 3 days of the vacation. We spent a morning picking strawberries and eating them. We picked rocks from a stream for hours. We tickled each other. We saw a baby and mommy moose and herds of elk. Small memories building and building with just the 3 of us, like little cairns that we made from the rocks on the small side of mountain streams. We talked more openly about what their dad might like and might not have liked, and I reassured them that they would see their dad again and it would be okay. And when they moved on from the double D topics of dad and divorce, I did too. Radical acceptance of my new life allowed me to enjoy it. On the drive home, the girls once again began to ask when we would get somewhere, anywhere interesting. As we drove through the miles of the scrub, the questions turned into whines, turned into tears. On the drive to the Dude Ranch, I had berated myself for signing up for 10 hours of a drive with 2 little girls. On the drive back, I looked in the mirror. "Mommy, when are we gonna get to New Mexico?" Amanda whined. "Yes, when?" Courtney whined with a high-pitched sadness. "Never," I said. "What?" Amanda looked at me with clear surprise. "Never. You will never get to New Mexico. This is the rest of your life stuck here in this car. You will grow up here. You will be here when you're 20. You will marry here. You will have your babies born in that backseat. You will die here. It's not a vacation. The car's it. You better learn to love it. The drive is for the rest of your life." First, they were quiet. The girls weren't sure what to make of this answer. And then they had giggles. And then they were high-pitched laughs. Accepting the reality of a 9-hour drive with whiny kids allowed us the best joke of the trip. We were never getting to New Mexico. Even when we passed the sign stating we were now in New Mexico, even as we pulled into our driveway. "When are we getting to New Mexico?" I asked as I unloaded the car. "Never," Amanda said as Courtney giggled. It was a chrysalis trip. The pain was a cocoon that we emerged from like butterflies. We've done a lot of travel since then, an Alaskan cruise, an Ocracoke seashore, Grand Canyon, and Disney. My children and I have sprinted through the Denver airport on 3 separate occasions to a plane located on the other side, and we've never missed one. My kids are little travel experts in normal life too. Going back and forth between their parents' houses is no longer painful, at least not in the dramatic, piercing way it once was. But I think taking the plunge in the Colorado River helped a lot. I think we emerged from the trip with an ability to fly, even as we are plunging.